Has demonetization passed the litmus test or has it failed? It's now time for the Economists face-off. Joining us to present presumably a pro-demonetization line, Dr. Surjit Bhalla, newly minted member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. Also squaring off against him, Dr. Arun Kumar. Welcome to the both of you. We've heard from corporate India, we've heard from netas on both sides of the political divide, but I'm hoping we'll stick to economics here and not so much the politics just for the next half hour. I want to begin by asking Dr. Surjit Bhalla, purely from an economic prism, do you believe demonetization has passed or has it failed? Chidambaram said yesterday it's like trying to kill that one mosquito and burning your whole house down.
You know, what is, you said, hopefully there would be no politics. And I would add to that, no ideology. What I hope we discuss, the actual data, and according to the actual data, notwithstanding what Mr. Chidambaram and other politicians who have to say what they have to say. I mean, what good is an opposition politician if he or she does not oppose the ruling party? So, you know, that's their DNA, to oppose. Our DNA is hopefully to look at the facts. The facts suggest that basically demonetization, and we can go through how we should measure it, but according to all the measures that people have used, it has been a resounding success. Not just a success, but a resounding success.
What are the parameters that you define the success by?
There's the first parameter that I want to dismiss out of hand, and that is what you journalists and all, and especially the opposition, love. Oh, there was 16.4 trillion rupees that were demonetized. And you know what? All of it came back into the system. Now, the reason, and therefore it hasn't worked. It is the case that there were some people, officials, and you know, we were all in a very uncertain world. Remember, the demonetization of the kind that was practiced in India last year has never before been practiced. It has only been done when there's hyperinflation. And we certainly didn't have hyperinflation. Though the RBI might think we are having hyperinflation when we have 4% inflation. But besides the RBI, I don't think there are too many people who were thinking that we were in the midst of a hyperinflation. So, and the economic growth was reasonable, 6.5% or thereabouts. So therefore, what you have is, here is cash taken out, and we were all groping around, trying to find, you know, what an economist normally does. Let's look at the past data. And I'm sure Arun did that, I did that, and there wasn't any past data. So, the first point, how much has money come back or not come back, I think is completely irrelevant in the long run sense, long run meaning 2-3 years sense, and I wrote this a week after demonetization, that actually I hoped, and I'm quoting myself correctly, that all of the money came back, including fake money. Why? Because there is supposed to be, and there is, I'm sure, a record. Who deposited what? Once that is in the system, it is now converted into legal tender, and so black has been turned into white. Now you've got to unravel the whiteness of that money, and that will be done over later. But I'll come to it.
So you've set the stage for this debate by picking on the one biggest argument that naysayers put out against demonetization, that all the cash came back. Dr. Bhalla and the government argue that that is really a good thing because it now leaves in its wake a financial trail the moment you try and take this money out of banks. The income tax department, all the agencies, the government know where this money is going. So instead of this being the biggest criticism of demonetization, it should instead be seen as the biggest benefit. Dr. Arun Kumar.
So, you know, black economy consists of two parts. You have black wealth and black income, right? Black wealth is a multiple of the black income that's annually generated, and according to my estimate, black income generation last year was 62%, which would amount to 93 lakh crores. So black wealth would be about 3 to 4 times of that because accumulated over 40, 50 years. So that would be about 300 to 400 lakh crores. So even if 3 to 4 lakh crores, which was black cash, has come back into the system, that's only 1% of the entire black wealth that has come back into the system, okay? Second is, of the black income generation of 93 lakh crores, if 3 to 4 lakh crore has been detected in some form or the other, then that's a tiny fraction of the total black income generation. And black income generation is a process. So, for instance, a business does under-invoicing and over-invoicing, that continues. If a doctor sees 50 patients and only declares 20, that process continues, and so on and so forth. So, in other words, when the 99% of the money has come back into the system, you have to now show that what money has come back is actually black or white. So if 3 to 4 lakh crore of black cash has come in, then income tax department has to investigate, because businesses keep cash in hand. And that cash in hand can be shown as part of the normal
That's a very strong counter, and I want Dr. Bhalla to address this, because there are two aspects. One, let's assume you've got 3 to 4 lakh crore rupees of black money in the bank. You don't know how much of that your income tax department will be able to catch. A lot of people will get away turning that black into white. Secondly, you haven't fundamentally addressed the generation of black money in the economy. Everyone who had a certain cash component, you just heard from a whole bunch of industrialists saying that that cash component is back to pre-demo levels, suggesting that the generation of black money still continues.
The cash is back to pre-demo level. I will address in a minute. You know, you have to be very careful from whence the opinion is coming. Those people who've been hurt by the system, by the demonetization, have, if you will, a vested interest in saying things haven't worked. So let's just look at the numbers. Therefore, no vested interest. First, the distinction between black income and black wealth. Absolutely correct what Arun is saying. However, no one in the world ever said that demonetization would attack black wealth. Black wealth is already in assets. So therefore, there is, absolutely irrelevant what is the story with black wealth. It's like saying demonetization was meant to make the growth rate 10%, eliminate black wealth to 0, eliminate black income to 0, and all of us will live happily ever after. Now, come on. We can't have everything in the world being attributed that demonetization would solve. So therefore, black wealth, though I think, it's an important concept, etc., absolutely irrelevant for this discussion and for any discussion about demonetization. Second, this thing about, cash has come back to earlier levels. Let me now, as it happens, we do have data on cash usage, non-cash usage, etc. And it turns out, if I take the 2014 to 16 average before demon, and I'm taking the average from January to August for 2014, 2015, 2016, that's before demon, and now is post-demon. Take in terms of cash at ATMs, how much you withdraw. That was growing at 16%, and now it's down 8%. Okay? But wait a second. Let's now look at credit cards, credit and debit cards, excluding the cash. You can use a credit card to get cash out. I'm excluding that. That was growing at 30%. This year, 83%, and you're telling me cash is back. Oh, fantastic. Now let's take cards and mobile. Credit cards, debit cards, and mobile, and PPD and all the rest. That was growing very healthily at 50%. This year, January to August, it's 122%. So I'm afraid, please, let's just get real. Let's look at the numbers. Let's not throw away any statistics. Be careful. There was another one that people are compared on job losses. I hope we get to that, where CMI...
We'll get to that separately. No, so you can argue two ways. One, you can say that the base is very small, and therefore, as a percentage, the growth looks very big, but actually is on a small base. But any growth will happen on the base that exists. And therefore, for digital transactions to be increasing at the speed at which Dr. Bhalla mentions, that is indeed praiseworthy and is taking India in the direction of a cleaner economy. Is that not something you'd appreciate?
So, it's not that it wasn't happening earlier. As Surjit's data shows, it was happening. Maybe this year it accelerated because of demonetization, but it's not reached levels where it's not going to revert back possibly or, continue forward. We can't say that. This year was exceptional because you forced people into digital transactions, right? And for digital transactions to go through, as, your earlier panelists were suggesting, you require several things. And therefore, in a sense, you needed to do it independent of demonetization. Demonetization forced the pace, but you could have done it independent of demonetization. Didn't need demonetization to do that. So, for instance, you require regulation, you require cyber security, you require financial literacy, you require, the increase of the point of sale machines, you require more of other things. So that could have been done independent of demonetization. So I won't link it up to demonetization and say that this is because of demonetization.
This is the chicken and egg question, and came up earlier as well, Dr. Bhalla. Some people said, first fix the bijli, the sadak, the pani, the internet connection, ensure the person has a mobile phone, and then work towards digital transaction, which is the last piece of the puzzle. Whereas here you've leapfrog over various other problems by going to the issue of digital transactions without first addressing the basic issues that rural India faces when it comes to using digital transactions. Because for many of them, this is just something they look at and wonder, what is the government thinking?
Again, well, show me the evidence. Surely you can go and the TV can go, and I'm sure your TV has gone, and pick out somebody, okay, and say, oh, I don't know how to use a digital phone, never use a digital phone, always use cash in my life, I've lost so much, my workers have left me, etc. Look, we are a 1.25 billion people. Now, there are about 1,100 mobile phones. A lot of the mobile phones are not necessarily smartphones that are needed for these transactions. What the numbers I showed you, right? This is a phenomenal rate of growth. It is, if you will, mobile, cards and mobile. I'll have the mobile also here somewhere. Cards and mobile went from a 50% growth rate to a 122% growth rate. Now, you know what? I'm going to wait until the growth rate is 60% and then bring about. No, so if I can get this going now, why should I wait? But mind you, look, in my view, cash movement to a non-cash society was just one of the objectives. I think the largest objective of the demonetization was to try and increase tax compliance.
No, one second. Because you're citing some numbers in support of demonetization. I've got some numbers that I'd like to present before you as well. There were 102 crore monthly digital transactions in November 2016. This spiked up to 149 crore transactions in December 2016, went up to 156 crore.
Rahul, you're making the same, sorry to interrupt, but you're making the same mistake.
I'm
sorry.
No.
The mistake is,
if I can just
I'll tell you what the mistake is.
Okay.
Like with like. You cannot compare what happened in November with what happened in February. What is it that all of us always do? Y-O-Y, year on year. There are seasonal elements involved. There's a structural change involved. So what you want to do, what is January to August last year?
Fair enough.
Before demon.
But
January to August this year, post demon. Take the aggregate of all the months. I'm not taking just 1 month. I'm not taking the average growth of 1 month. I'm taking the total cumulative.
But the curve shows a spike and then it shows a bit of a fall.
It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. The Y-O-Y does not show that. The month on month may show that, but that is completely false. Wrong. You get an F if you do that, which of course.
Arun Kumar, is this,
Get an F.
he does have a point. He's failed me for economics, but monthly transactions seem to suggest that digital transactions are currently plateauing. But he says you're looking at the wrong set of data.
So I think both sets of data have their own point of, importance. Whereas the year-to-year data will show you what the trend is, but it also shows that when you have a shock, what happens. And when you administer a shock, at that point of time, people change their habit because they're forced to. Then they revert back. So in a sense, what it shows is that people can revert back to old habits, if the change is not permanent. And I think this is where we need to distinguish between the organized sector and the unorganized sector. The organized sector, which is largely in the urban areas and so on and so forth, there you already had that movement. And when you force people, as the data shows, maybe 100 million people, came on board, maybe, 20 million people started having point of sale machine or whatever the numbers were. So you did produce that effect. But the question is how permanent would that be and how much of it would last?
There's an easy test. So you look at August this year. Now 10 months have happened. 10 months have happened. Why is the rate of growth still going up?
So on a small base, you can have a very high rate of growth.
But kaun si base loge? You want cash ki base le lo. That was a lot. You want total transactions. You want non-cash transactions have doubled. the rate of growth of non-cash transactions have doubled.
Demand
From
for
20 to 38. And you're telling me that doesn't have a low base. That's all non-cash transactions.
So
How much are we going to bring out low base? I take logarithmic growth rates, I get the same answer.
So demand for cash has come back in the economy.
How?
90% remonetization has already taken place. Of the 15.44 lakh crore that had been demonetized, more than 90% has come back, and more is coming back on. And the reason it slowed down is because the RBI started printing small denomination currency notes, and that's why the pace of remonetization slowed down. So what we have to see is that overall, over a period of time, how much does the cash in circulation with the public, how much does that come down? That will be an indicator of how the people's, practices
Should we
have
be
changed.
shifting goalposts all the time? That's
that's
a brand new indicator.
No, that's not a brand new indicator. That's a sign of how much people are demanding. RBI just doesn't issue currency just for the heck of it. It's the demand in the market that's actually pushing that.
No, but Dr. Arun Kumar, can I ask you about, whether we should look at demonetization as a tool by itself and what it's done to the economy? Because you could add to this things like the Bankruptcy Code, the crackdown on shell companies, the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, and GST, which are all substantive measures which will all take India or are taking India in the direction of India being a far more tax compliant and cleaner economy.
So when we look at demonetization, all these steps could have been done independent of it. GST, when it was thought of, was not thought of as a, sort of post-demonetization step. When you brought in the real estate bill, it wasn't thought of as it would come post-demonetization. When you did gold
I love this conversation because arguments are compelling on both sides.
So
Dr.
I
Bhalla,
don't think so.
okay.
I'm sorry.
In a sense, so
You have to prove, show the evidence. We have just talked, my good friend Arun Kumar has just talked in platitudes and generalities. At least I'm the only person giving numbers over here. That's what I said we need to assess it by. If the numbers are down, numbers are up, let's discuss numbers. Theory we can discuss all the time, philosophy, we do that 24/7.
No, but I'm giving a logical argument
What?
why these steps could have been done independent of demonetization. They don't have a link with demonetization. You could force the pace of digitization in other ways.
Okay, then why didn't
That's a
you?
logical argument that I'm
Then
saying.
why didn't you and all the other
I'm
great
also
economists
presenting
come out with
data
a measure
saying that,
to replace demonetization?
So
Tell me, what policy would you come
in
up
the Indian economy, this is not the first time we've taken a step against black economy. This very government has taken many steps against black economy, starting with the SIT, starting with the...
No, but
Again, generality.
No, that's not generality.
Since you're on a philosophical point, Dr. Arun Kumar, can I not argue that it requires a trigger? Behavior change requires some kind of momentum which is unanticipated, which forces you to change habits that you acquired over decades. And demonetization could possibly be the strongest trigger that could have been administered by any government. Sending a clear message that chalta hai won't do, you have to...
Let's take another problem plaguing...
No, let me answer. So demonetization, this is not the first time we've done demonetization. We did it in 78.
No, come on.
At that time, I.G. Patel wrote, that's on record, I.G. Patel wrote saying this step will not help, but if the government wants to do, go ahead with it. And it didn't impact the black economy because at that time the high denomination currency notes were only 0.6% of the total
Because
currency.
you can't go away from this. So in conclusion, Dr. Bhalla, because not just Arun Kumar, even people like Raghuram Rajan have come out and said, given the cost, it's a question of cost-benefit analysis, given the cost of demonetization, the same benefits could have accrued in less destructive ways.
I'm glad you brought Dr. Rajan up and what he said. And I think, why don't we wait for 6 months? And then let's ask Raghu.
What will change in 6 months?
Huh?
What will change?
Basically, you'll have a lot more data. At that point when he said he thought that the costs would outweigh the benefits. Remember, several other people thought the costs would outweigh the benefits. GDP will decline by 4 percentage points.
But job loss is a reality. For the first 4 months of this year, CMI suggests that 1.5 million jobs have been lost. That's a reality. That's concrete data. A lot of this, CMI believes, is as a consequence of demonetization.
I'm very glad you brought that up, Rahul. Let us look at that 1.5 million jobs lost. That CMI did exactly the same mistake that you were doing, which they compared, and I'm serious, and I'll quote, they compared September to December of last year versus January to April this year. And they showed that 1.5 million jobs were lost. Now, you yourself, right, have brought in that this is the big piece of evidence, if I understand you right. This is the big piece of evidence that jobs have been lost. Matter of fact, it's the only piece of evidence. CMIE is the only source providing data today on employment, and it's a fairly large survey, and so on and so forth. So let me give you the following news, Rahul. Between, again, like with like, January to August last year, and January to August this year, CMIE data, मेरा नहीं, आपका नहीं, CMIE का data, वही जो data कह रहा है कि बहुत jobs loss हुए. CMIE data shows that there were 6 million jobs, hear me correctly, 6 million jobs created between January to August last year and January to August this year. This is for the entire population, 15 to 64. However, what we should be looking at is the adult population, because people are also going to school, and that's counted as not having a job. If you now look at CMIE data, January to August 2016, January to August 2017, age group, 25 to 64, 13 million, hear me right, 13 million jobs have been created. I'm not looking at the unemployment data, which has whether you participated in the labor force or not. I'm only looking at actual jobs created. Now tell me.
Final word.
So, you know, if you look at the unorganized sector, that was hit by between 50 to 80% according to Punjab Haryana Delhi Chamber of Commerce Industry, State Bank of India survey, All India Manufacturers Association survey. Government doesn't have the data on the unorganized sector. It only assumes that the unorganized sector is behaving exactly like the organized sector.
The unorganized sector works.
The unorganized sector declined dramatically.
People are working in the unorganized sector.
Let me complete my argument. Organized sector, which was supposed to be growing, if you assume that the unorganized sector is growing at the same rate, you'll get the result that the government is getting. Otherwise, the rate of growth during that period from November to January was negative in my judgment. And for the year as a whole, it was 0. And even now, the rate of growth is probably close to 1%, not 5.7%.
Okay.
Because of the impact of GST.
This is where
but unorganized sector people work, na?
This means
they're also working.
This means, no, they're unemployed.
And they're 30, but how did 13 million extra jobs get created?
Demand for Manrega.
Was it all
dramatically?
All 30 million
in
Manrega?
Because large number of people went back to the rural areas.
Okay, the experts have spoken. We will leave it to our viewers to decide whose argument they wish to buy, because the final data, as Dr. Bhalla says, will still take some more time to come before it can be conclusively established one way or the other. Till then, you've heard two very passionately argued points of view. The one thing I am delighted about is that the Prime Minister now has access to high-quality economic advice. Whether he necessarily had that earlier or not is debatable, but at least he's got good economists now advising him. Hopefully, adequate thought will go through before we pull the next trigger. But I want to thank Surjit Bhalla and Arun Kumar for joining us here at the Demonetisation Face-Off. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.